What about me? Little Rude called out to the woodcutter. Come back! But the woodcutter didn't take any notice of Little Rude. The boat glided across the river. Within minutes, he and the animals hopped off the boat onto the far riverbank. They skipped across the grass and went into Grandma's house. That's rude, Little Rude muttered to herself. The woodcutter was taking the animals to see Grandma. He could have taken me too. Without a boat, Little Rude had to wade across the cold river. She lifted the basket of cakes as high as she could, but they still got very wet. Her shoes filled up with water, and her stockings were soaked through. She threw the ruined cakes in the river and watched them sink. By the time Little Rude had crossed the river, she had arrived at Grandma's house. She was in a very bad mood. "Let me in!" she shouted as she hammered on the door. The woodcutter opened the door. "Good afternoon," he said. "Would you like to come in?" "Why are you answering the door? This isn't your house," said Little Rude, pushing past him. "We're getting the house ready for a surprise birthday party for your grandma," said the woodcutter. "We sent her out for a lovely walk this morning," Mrs. Rabbit explained. "She'll be back soon." "I've brought balloons," said Mr. Wolf. "Mr. Woodcutter has brought paper chains, and the rabbit family has brought food. Well, I brought cakes, and they got ruined in the river," said Little Rude. "Never mind." Young Tasty Rabbit clapped her paws. "You can eat one of mine." Little Rude walked over to the table and started to squash all of Tessie's cakes in her basket. "Hey, leave some for the rest of us," Tessie cried. "No, I won't," said Little Rude. "I'm going to eat them all myself." Tassie looked very sad. "How rude," growled Mr. Wolf. "Tassie baked the cakes for everyone." The animals wished that Little Rude wasn't there. They worried that she was going to ruin the party with her rudeness. "Would you like to help us with the decorations?" Mrs. Rabbit asked. Little Rude flopped down in Grandma's armchair and put her dirty, wet feet up on the stool. "No, I'm tired from walking," she said. "But we're all helping," said Tessie Rabbit. "Make me," said Little Rude, grinning. "Well, if you aren't going to help, please could you at least move out of the way?" asked the woodcutter. "I need to stand on the chair to finish hanging up my paper chains." "Oh, you'll just have to stretch, you lazy thing," said Little Rude. "I'll sit where I like." The woodcutter climbed onto a stool and leaned as far as he could over Little Rude's head. He reached and fell. Off the stool he tumbled down the floor along with all of the paper chains. The woodcutter was really sad that his lovely decorations had been ruined. "Never mind," Mrs. Rabbit comforted him. "Why don't we practice our song for Grandma instead? It's her present from us, a special birthday song that we wrote," Tessie Rabbit explained to Little Rude. "But you already brought cakes," said Little Rude. "This is extra," said Tessie, smiling and clapping her paws. Little Rude didn't want the animals to have a lovely extra present for Grandma when she didn't, so she waited until they started to sing, and she blew a big raspberry. They all stopped. "You ruining the song?" said Mr. Roof sternly. "No, I'm making it better," Little Rude replied, laughing to herself. "Your singing sounds like a bunch of cats fighting a gagpipe." She waited until they started again and then blew another raspberry. Mr. Wolf had reached the end of his tether with Little Rude. He stomped over to her and roared, "Will you stop being so rude?" Little Rude was silent for a moment. Then she poked out her tongue and blew one more big raspberry right at Mr. Wolf. "That's it," bellowed Mr. Wolf. "If you don't stop right now, I will gobble you up." "Ha! You can't catch me. You're so slow, you lose a race against a sleepy snail." Little Roo put her thumb in her ears and waggled her fingers at Mr. Wolf. Then she ran around the room, the red hood bouncing behind her. Mr. Wolf ran after Little Roo. He chased her into a corner. Little Roo wasn't scared. She turned and laughed at him, which made Mr. Wolf even more angry. "You know, I used to be known as the Big Bad Wolf before I learned some manners," he growled. "Ha! You're more like a small, scared squirrel with false teeth. You'd never eat me." Little Roo laughed so much she didn't see Mr. Wolf's big bad mouth open right over her head.